Why won't my boyfriend come inside my house? My boyfriend Parker used to love coming over to mine, until one day he was visiting for dinner and suddenly just refused to come in. He stammered out an excuse that we should go eat at his place instead. At his apartment, he acted completely normal. But when I told him I needed to go back to mine so I could quickly grab my work clothes, he actually said he'd buy me new ones. He wasn't upset or anxious either. He just absolutely refused to go inside my house. The next day, he texted that he was outside, but when I stepped out, he'd parked 3 houses down. When I asked why he didn't pull into the driveway, he said he preferred to park on the street now. I started trying anything to get him to visit. I downloaded his favorite movie. I asked him to help me move furniture, but he just hired movers instead and refused to step inside. Once, it started raining hard while he waited outdoors, and he got completely soaked rather than step under the covered porch. I asked if something happened the last time he was there. He said no. I asked why he wouldn't come inside, and he said he just couldn't anymore. When I pressed for a reason, he said, "I'd rather not discuss it." His behavior was affecting everything. We couldn't hang out with my roommate Anna. We couldn't use my pool. He suggested I move in with him, and when I said my lease wasn't up for 8 months, he offered to pay the penalty to break it. He'd already put a deposit on a new apartment without telling me. I had to figure out what was going on. Anna said nothing unusual happened that last Tuesday he visited. Parker had waited in the living room like always. She'd been in her room most of the time. When she came back downstairs, he was sitting on the couch normally. Nothing seemed wrong until I got home and he immediately wanted to leave. She said he'd actually left his phone on the coffee table in his rush to get out, and she'd had to run after him to give it back. I checked our security cameras from that night. Parker arrived at 6:15, and Anna let him in at 6:16. There was a gap in the footage from 6:18 to 6:27. 9 minutes of black screen. He was sitting on the couch before and after looking exactly the same. But his wine glass was on the opposite side of the coffee table, and his jacket was folded differently. My neighbor mentioned seeing Parker's car parked outside for hours last week while I was at work. When I asked Parker about it, he said yes, he'd been there. The neighbor said Parker had walked around the entire house multiple times, taking photos with his phone and measuring the distance between windows. I started staying at his place every night. He'd drive me home in the mornings and wait in the car. His mother came to visit and asked to see my house. Parker told her I'd moved in with him permanently, and my house had black mold. I'd never mentioned any mold, and when I corrected him, he gave me a look that stopped me cold. 3 weeks passed and nothing changed. Our relationship was perfect otherwise, but he'd started making bigger decisions. He'd called my landlord pretending to be me and tried to break my lease. He'd had my mail forwarded to his address. He was systematically removing any reason for me to go home. I found his laptop history showing dozens of searches about my address, property records and previous owners and news articles going back to 1890. I threatened to break up with him if he didn't explain. He said he understood if I needed to do that, but he still couldn't tell me. He said, "I can't explain it in a way that would make sense to you." When I said to try anyway, he said, "You wouldn't believe me and it would make things worse for you." I asked if my house was dangerous. He said no. I asked if something bad would happen if he came inside. He said no. I asked if he was afraid. He said fear wasn't the right word. When I asked what the right word was, he thought for a long moment and said,